आपने प्रोसेस इम्प्रूवमेंट के हवाले से या वैसे सॉफ्टवेयर इंजीनियरिंग में मैट्रिक्स या मेजरमेंट्स के बारे में सुना होगा. सॉफ्टवेयर मेजरमेंट is a very integral and essential part in good software engineering now. However, this has not been the case for the last 20-30 years. It had been considered an obscure and esoteric speciality which interested only mathematicians and those who were driven by quality approaches. However, now it has become an essential part of good software engineering practices. Many of the best software developers measure characteristics of software to get some sense of whether the requirements are consistent and complete, whether the code is ready to be tested or not. And similarly, there are other areas where measurements can be applied. Effective project managers measure attributes of process as well as product to be able to tell when the software will be ready for delivery and whether the budget will be exceeded or not. Similarly, informed customers measure aspects of final product to determine if it meets the requirements and if sufficient quality has been incorporated in the software product or services. However, if we take a back step, analyze world around us, we will notice that measurements lie at the heart of many systems that govern our lives. For example, economic measurements determine price and pay increases. Measurements in radar systems enable us to detect aircraft when direct vision is obscured or is not possible. Similarly, medical system measurements enable medical professionals, especially doctors, to diagnose specific illnesses, and increasingly medical technologists are depending on these measurements. Measurements in atmospheric systems are the basis for weather prediction, and all of us depend on it on a regular basis. So we can say that without measurement, technology cannot function properly. But measurements are not solely the domain of professional technologists. Each of us use it in everyday life. For example, price of an object acts as a measure of the value of that item in a shop. We use height, weight, and size measurements to ensure that our clothing will fit properly. When making a journey, we calculate distance, we choose our route, we measure our speed and predict when we will arrive at our destination and perhaps when we need to refuel. And these are everyday measurements that I and you all use and depend on a frequent basis. So measurements help us to understand our world correctly, to interact with our surroundings, and ultimately to improve our lives. Measurements are not our enemies. In fact, they are our friends. These examples that I've shared with you present a picture of a variety in how we use measurements. There is a common thread running through each of these described activities, and this is something you have to listen carefully. In every case, some aspect of a thing is assigned a descriptor that allows us to compare it with others. For example, in a shop, we can compare the price of one item with another. In a clothing store, we contrast sizes. And on our journey, we compare distance traveled to distance remaining. And so these attributes or characteristics have to be assigned the same descriptor, otherwise they'll not be, you cannot compare them. So the rules for assignment and comparisons are not, although the rules for assignment and comparisons are not explicitly stated in these examples, but it is clear that we make our comparisons and calculations according to a well-defined set of rules. ये ऐसे rules हैं जो कि defined हैं already, although हमने इन examples में उनको describe नहीं किया, लेकिन ये rules defined हैं और हमें पहले से पता हैं, so that we can define measurements formally. A measurement is a process by which numbers or symbols are assigned to attributes of entities in the real world in such a way as to describe them according to clearly defined rules. यानी कि measurement एक ऐसा तरीक है जिससे आप बाज़ entities की attributes को कुछ नंबर या कोई सिंबल असाइन करते हैं, जिसकी वजह से आप उनको कंपेयर भी कर सकते हैं और उनके बारे में कोई मीनिंगफुल conclusions ड्रॉ कर सकते हैं. एंड यू डू दैट बाय क्लियरली डिफाइंड रूल्स. स्लाइड कंप्लीट. Thus measurements capture information. So इस डेफिनेशन से आपने ये ऑब्जर्व किया होगा कि एक मेजरमेंट जो है वो एंटिटीज़ या ऑब्जेक्ट्स की एट्रीब्यूट्स के बारे में इंफॉर्मेशन कैप्चर करती है. What is an entity? An entity is an object or an event in real time या in the real world. मिसाल के तौर पे हम कह सकते हैं कि a person or a room is an entity, और हम कह सकते हैं कि journey or testing phase of software project is also an entity. What we want to do is to describe the entity by identifying characteristics, जिसको हम attributes भी कह सकते हैं, that are important to us in distinguishing one entity from another entity. यानी कि एक entity के ऐसे characteristics या ऐसे features या ऐसे attributes या ऐसी properties जो कि हमारे लिए दूसरी entity से comparison में useful हों, उनको हम identify करते हैं, उनको हम distinguish करते हैं for the purpose of measurement. For example, typical attributes include area of a room, a color of a room, the cost of a journey, or the elapsed time of a software testing phase or development phase or anything for that matter. We often talk about entities and their attributes interchangeably. जिस तरह हम कह सकते हैं कि it is cold today. Now, if you think about this sentence for a minute, what does it mean? Is it cold today? What we are really saying is that the air temperature is cold today. It is not the day which is cold, it is the air temperature which is cold. Similarly, we say that Usman is taller than Ali. What actually we are saying or conveying is that Usman's height is greater than or longer than Ali's height. So we use these interchangeably in commonplace languages or in commonplace environment. However, this loose terminology is not acceptable for scientific endeavors. In everyday usage, this is fine. However, you have to be careful and more precise about what you say in scientific environments and in engineering scenarios. So this is wrong to say that we measure things or that we measure attributes. In fact, we measure attributes of things. It is ambiguous to say we measure a room, for example. Since we can measure its length, we can measure its area, or we can measure the temperature in a room. Likewise, it is ambiguous to say that we measure the temperature, since we measure the temperature of a specific geographical location under specific conditions. We cannot say in a month of June in Asia, for example, that it is very cold when you are sitting in an air-conditioned room. or a chiller, but if you go outside, it may be very, very warm, and so you have to describe what conditions were prevailing at the time when the measurement, especially if you're talking about temperature, that measurement was taken. In other words, what is commonplace in common speech is unacceptable for engineers and scientists like you, especially when we are dealing with software engineering projects. We can describe entities by using attributes. We often define the attributes using numbers or symbols. Price can also be described by numbers, by a number of rupees or a number of dollars or a number of pounds or anything, or any currency that you want to assign. Similarly, you can assign a symbol of size to clothing where the values are small, medium, or large, or extra large. These numbers and symbols are abstractions that we use to reflect our perception of the real world, and this is very important. For example, when defining numbers and symbols, we try to preserve certain relationships that we see among entities. If we see two people, height of one person is 6 feet and the height of another person is 5 feet, we can say, since we are looking at or seeing these two persons, we can say that a person with 6 feet, whose height is 6 feet, is taller than the person whose height is 5 feet, and we are actually translating our perception or our view of something into quantifiable numbers or symbols. Similarly, a medium-sized t-shirt is certainly smaller than a large size t-shirt. So this number or symbol can be very useful, also very important when we compare different entities or when we compare different attributes of entities within an application area or within a domain. We can make judgments about entities solely by knowing and analyzing these attributes. So we can say that Usman, who is taller than Ali, or Usman's whose height is taller or larger than Ali's height, can have difficulty in sleeping on a small bed, for example, a bed which is designed for children. तो इस तरह की एनालिसिस और जजमेंट्स जो हैं वो हम कर सकते हैं अगर हमारे पास मुख्तलिफ एंटिटीज़ की एट्रीब्यूट्स के बारे में इंफॉर्मेशन मिल जाए तो। इसी तरह अगर एक शख्स के बारे में आपको बताया जाए कि उसका कद जो है वो 7 फुट का है, तो जो पहली बात आपके जहन में आएगी वो ये आएगी कि if that person is going to come and meet us in our office, then he would need to stoop, which is to basically bend forward and down from the waist and then enter your room, because typically the office doors are not designed to let 7 feet people enter into the room. Normal height is typically there would be less than 7 feet. So unless we install a new door for that person or we require that person to bend and then come into the office. So ये वो चीज़ें हैं जो हमारे ingrained हो जाती हैं. It becomes natural to us because we are so used to of making judgments based on different measurements that are so commonplace in our everyday life. Now, having said this, it is still difficult to accurately measure many things. There are many different views that lead to different interpretations about what constitutes measurement. And I've already talked about a definition of measurement. However, it is a process whose definition is not really and completely and ambiguously clear to all of us. And to understand what measurement is, we must ask a host of questions which are difficult to answer. For example, अगर मैं आपसे कहूँ कि we have noted that a color is an attribute of a room, ठीक है, और इसके ऊपर हमने पहले भी बात की. In a room which has blue walls, is blue the measure of the color of the room? And what does it tell us? How do you say that a room which has blue walls is in any way better than a room which has, let's say, off-white walls? And so even if we are able to quantify something or measure something, what does it say? We know something about that attribute, that is the color of the wall, but the value is probably not going to help us a lot. Similarly, the height of a person is commonly understood attribute that can be measured. But what about other attributes of people? For example, intelligence. Is intelligence adequately measured by an IQ test score or not? There are questions about it. And similarly, a soft drink can be measured in terms of caffeine content in it. And the typical answer to that is the proof, as you say, that the proof is in the eating of the pudding, that if you drink a soft drink which has high content of caffeine, you will have difficulty sleeping as compared to a soft drink which has lower content of caffeine. But can a soft drink quality be measured using the rating of experts? That is, you consider me to be a food expert and a beverages expert. If I say soft drink number 1 has higher quality because this, because of this and this, and then soft drink number 2, would that count as to be an accurate measure, or it's just personal like or dislike? Or can you say that the quality of burgers of a certain fast food chain is better compared to the burgers of another fast food chain? How do you compare these two things? Can you quantify them? And how? And even if you can, how can you actually measure the likeness attribute, which is actually very applicable in food and beverage industry? Third question that is a host of things is the accuracy of the measure depends on the measuring instrument as well as on the definition of the measurement. For example, you can measure the length accurately as long as the ruler that you're using is accurate and it is used properly. But some measures are not likely to be accurate, either because the measurement is imprecise or because it depends on the judgment of the person doing the measuring. For instance, proposed measure of human intelligence or soft drink quality appear to have likely error margins because these measures are related to individuals' judgment. Is this a reason to reject them as bona fide measurements? I'll give you another example. If you send two people to watch a movie, they'll probably come back with two different answers on whether it's a high quality movie or it's a low quality movie. And so there are a number of things that you need to be clear about before applying measurements blindly everywhere, and also particularly in software engineering. Another question that you need to ask with respect to measurements is that even when the measuring devices are reliable and used properly, there is a margin of error in measuring the best understood physical attributes. For example, we can obtain vastly different measures for a person's height, depending on whether we make allowances for the shoes being worn or the standing posture. I can go and get my height measured and take off the shoes, or I can bend a little bit and get my height measured, or I can stand straight and get my height measured. And these are two different, you'll come up with two different results. So how do we decide which error margins are acceptable and which are not? And whatever answer we do, we have to clearly spell out the environment and the conditions under which measures are taken. Similarly, we need to worry about another issue, which is we can measure height in terms of meters, inches, or feet. These different scales measure the same attribute, that is the length or the height, but we can also measure height in terms of miles and kilometers, which is appropriate for measuring the height of a satellite or a distance of a satellite above Earth, but not for measuring the height of a person. Certainly, I have not seen or not heard of one person who is 1 kilometer tall. So obviously, using a kilometer scale for measuring the height of a person is absurd. So when is a scale acceptable for the purpose to which it is being used? So that's another interesting area that you need to worry about when you get into this measurement business. Another thing is that once we obtain measurements, we want to analyze them and draw conclusions about entities from which they were derived. What kind of manipulations can we apply to the result of the measurement? For example, why is it acceptable to say that Fred is twice as tall as Joe, but not acceptable to say that it is twice as hot today as it was yesterday? I mean, you're measuring temperature of 2 days and you're measuring height of two people. Why cannot we say Fred is twice as long? Why can we say Fred is twice as long as Joe, but why cannot we say today is twice as hot as it was yesterday? And why is it meaningful to calculate the mean set of a height? For example, that the average height of buildings in London is 200 meters, but it does not mean any sense. It makes any sense to calculate the mean of hockey players' jersey numbers of a team. You see, all the hockey team members have a jersey number, and it starts from, let's say, 0 to 11 or 0 to 500 or whatever. But calculating mean of these jersey numbers makes absolutely no sense. How do we make that judgment? So all of this information actually comes from the application domain that we are measuring entities into. I'll give you another example, although it is not directly applicable to the question to the area that I'm talking about, but this example would convey the difficulty of using the same attributes or measures to describe one concept. अब हम कह सकते हैं कि कल मूसलाधार बारिश हुई. It means it rained yesterday continuously, but हम लेकिन ये नहीं कह सकते कि कल में मूसलाधार भागा. So obviously both of the terms cannot be compared, because मूसलाधार बारिश हुई makes some sense to you, लेकिन किसी के मूसलाधार भागने का जिक्र आज तक हमने नहीं सुना. So it is important to remember that the concepts of time, temperature, and speed, once unmeasurable by primitive peoples, are not only commonplace, but also easily measured by almost everyone. These measurements have become part of the fabric of our existence. So initially ये measurements नहीं थी, और इन measurements को determine करने के लिए, इनको चीज़ों को calculate करने के लिए हमें as a whole humanity को काफ़ी मेहनत और कोशिश करनी पड़ी. तो यही चीज़ें हमें सॉफ्टवेयर इंजीनियरिंग में भी डील करनी पड़ती हैं. टू इम्प्रूव द रिगर ऑफ मेजरमेंट इन सॉफ्टवेयर इंजीनियरिंग, we need not restrict the type or range of measurements we can make. Indeed, the measuring of unmeasurable should improve our understanding of particular entities and attributes, making software engineering as powerful as other engineering disciplines. क्योंकि मुख्तलिफ जो engineering disciplines हैं वो वहाँ measurements ज़्यादा effectively यूज़ होती हैं. और ये भी एक सही बात है कि जो दूसरे इंजीनियरिंग डिसिप्लिन हैं, मसलन कंस्ट्रक्शन है या इलेक्ट्रिकल इंजीनियरिंग है या ऑटोमोटिव है, वो हमारे सॉफ्टवेयर इंजीनियरिंग से पुराने डिसिप्लिन्स हैं. हाउएवर some software engineers still think and claim that important software attributes like dependability, like quality, usability, and maintainability are simply not quantifiable. But we would like to make a case that we try to use measurement to advance our understanding of these attributes. We should note that there are two kinds of quantification. One is measurements and second is calculation, and sometimes people mix the two, but they are actually two distinct things, as you will see. Measurement is a direct quantification of something. For example, when you measure height of a tree or weight of a shipment of bricks, that is a direct quantification, and that you call measurement. On the other hand, calculation is indirect, where we take measurements and combine them into a quantified item that reflects some attribute whose value we are trying to understand. और इसकी एग्जांपल आपको मैं ये देता हूँ कि आप अगर किसी घर या दुकान या किसी और प्रॉपर्टी की वैल्यूएशन करवाएं फॉर टैक्स पर्पसेस और फॉर सेल पर्पसेस, तो उसमें बहुत सारे फैक्टर्स इंक्लूड होते हैं. वो देखते हैं कि इसके साथ एरिया कितना एसोसिएटेड है, कवर्ड एरिया या फुटप्रिंट कितना है, कमरे कितने हैं और स्क्वायर फुटेज कितनी यूज़ हो रही है, और फिर किस लोकेलिटी में है या किस एरिया ऑफ द सिटी में है, और उसके ऊपर डिपेंड करके मुख्तलिफ़ चीज़ों को कैलकुलेट करने के बाद एक क्वान्टिफाइबल नंबर वैल्यू या असेस्ड वैल्यू उसकी उस प्रॉपर्टी की या उस शॉप की या उस मकान की डिटरमिन की जाती है. इसी तरह एक बहुत मशहूर स्पोर्टिंग इवेंट है जिसको डेक्काथलॉन एथलेटिक इवेंट कहते हैं, और इसमें 10 के करीब इवेंट्स में एथलीट्स को पार्टिसिपेट करना पड़ता है. दे हैव टू participate in running events, they have to participate in jumping events and so forth, and based on each event's difficulty and the performance एक calculation होती है at the end of the 10 events, और उसमें जो सबसे ज़्यादा टॉप पे नंबर हासिल करता है उसको कंसिडर करते हैं the smartest or the fastest man on earth. और ये this event is considered is included in Olympics and other athletics से related जो sporting events हैं उनमें भी. तो उसके मुकाबले पर एक 100 मीटर शॉर्ट फास्ट रनिंग होती है, 200 मीटर्स होती है, जिसमें एक सिंपल एक इवेंट के नतीजे में रिजल्ट्स हो जाते हैं. लेकिन ये एक एग्जांपल है where we have direct quantification of a measurement, जिसमें वो एक एथलीट की परफॉर्मेंस को इनडायरेक्टली कैलकुलेट किया जाता है. इसी तरह सॉफ्टवेयर इंजीनियरिंग में भी बाज़ मेजर्स डायरेक्ट हैं और बाज़ मेजर्स इनडायरेक्ट हैं. आज की डिस्कशन चूँकि फोकस्ड है ऑन गिविंग यू इंट्रोडक्शन अबाउट मेजरमेंट्स, इसलिए हम बहुत ज़्यादा डिटेल में सॉफ्टवेयर इंजीनियरिंग के मेजर्स के ऊपर बात नहीं कर सकते. लेकिन सॉफ्टवेयर इंजीनियरिंग एक्टिविटीज़ जो हैं उनमें मैनेजमेंट भी है, कॉस्टिंग भी है, प्लानिंग भी है, मॉडलिंग है, एनालिसिस शामिल है, डिज़ाइनिंग शामिल है, स्पेसिफिकेशन है, डेवलपमेंट है, इम्प्लीमेंटेशन है, टेस्टिंग है, मेंटेनेंस है, और हमें इन सब एरियाज़ में मेजरमेंट्स की ज़रूरत होती है. बाज़ मेजरमेंट्स हम डायरेक्टली कलेक्ट कर लेते हैं, बाज़ मेजर्स के लिए हमें कैलकुलेशंस की दरकार होती है. तो अंडरपिनिंग द सॉफ्टवेयर प्रोसेस इज़ मेजरमेंट इज़ कि उसमें आप जो वेरिएबल्स जिनको आप कलेक्ट कर रहे हैं उनको आप डिफ्रेंशिएट करेंगे डिपेंडिंग ऑन द एक्टिविटी दैट यू परफॉर्मिंग. फॉर एग्जांपल आप एनालिसिस कर रहे हैं तो उसके जो मेजरिंग वेरिएबल्स हैं वो डिफरेंट होंगे फ्रॉम टेस्टिंग के अंदर जो हमें वेरिएबल्स चाहिए, और उनको कलेक्ट करने का तरीक भी मुख्तलिफ होगा. वो डायरेक्ट भी हो सकते हैं, इनडायरेक्ट भी हो सकते हैं. फॉर अ लॉन्ग टाइम as a community, as an industry, measurement were not considered necessary in software engineering. So we neglected measurements in software engineering for a long time. We failed to set measurable targets for our software products. For example, we promised that the software product will be user-friendly, it will be reliable and maintainable, without specifying clearly and objectively what these terms mean. As a result, when the project is complete, we cannot tell if we have met our goals. So projects without clear goals will not achieve their goals clearly. Similarly, we fail to understand and quantify the component costs of software project. For example, most projects cannot differentiate between cost of design from cost of coding and testing. Hence, excessive cost is a frequent complaint from many of our customers. We cannot hope to control costs if we are not measuring the relative cost of components. Similarly, we do not quantify or predict the quality of the products we produce. As a result, we cannot tell a potential user how reliable a product will be in terms of likelihood of failure in a given period of time, or how much work will be needed to port the product to a different machine or different operating environment. What happens is that we allow anecdotal evidence to convince us to try revolutionary new development technology or revolutionary new development methodology or approach without doing a carefully controlled study to determine if the new technology or new methodology or new language is efficient, effective. So this has been going on in our industry for a long time, but now things are changing and people are paying attention to measurements, to using measurements in software engineering and to applying to gauge the quality of the product as well as that of processes. Even when a project is not in trouble, measurements are not only useful but necessary. After all, how can we tell if our project is healthy if we have no measures of its health? One of the best examples that I quote for this is that if you measure the temperature of a healthy person in 1 week, you will know that there is no fever. And so measuring the temperature, body temperature of a healthy person reassures us that the person has no fever. However, if the person has fever, then measuring the temperature of that individual becomes even more important and even more necessary. So measurement is needed at least for assessing the status of our projects, products, processes, as well as resources. Let's talk about the objectives of software engineering measurements, and we have to look at these objectives from different perspectives, both from management's point of view or manager's perspective, as well as from engineer's perspective. From the manager's perspective, we can ask what does process cost? That is the process that we are introducing in an organization, in a company. What is the cost of implementing the process? Is it going to incur exorbitant costs, or it is manageable in the overhead? Similarly, how productive is the staff? This is something that management is always worried about, and that is the productivity level of the engineering staff. And unless you have measures in place, you will not be able to know about the productivity of the staff. Third is how good is the code being developed, and that directly relates to the quality of the product that is being built. And unless there is a mechanism in place to collect measures which relate to software quality, the management will never be sure about the quality of the product. And also, if you carefully analyze these measures, you will be able to identify opportunities for training for your engineering staff, where you see that they are making certain mistakes, or certain or they're deficient in certain areas of development. So the management can arrange for providing necessary training. Now, this serves the purpose of not only assuring quality, but also improving the skill set of the professionals. Similarly, the management is interested about the user satisfaction or customer satisfaction of the product, and unless you have measures in place that are collected from the customers on different aspects of product, on how user friendly it is, how reliable it is, and so forth, the management will never know about the perceptions or actual of the product in view of the customer. Similarly, the management is interested in knowing about making improvements to the products, and there are a set of measures that they can collect during the development as well as post-development scenarios, where they would be able to make judgment about which improvements they need to make, whether that improvement deals with the process side, or with the product side, or with the human resource. As I mentioned, that training is one area where improvements can be directly incorporated by collecting measures on different aspects of software development. Now, engineers are also interested in looking at or collecting measures and then making judgments and analyzing their ways of developing software. They are interested in things like, are the requirements testable? And if they know the answer to that question, they will be able to define the test suite in a much organized fashion. Similarly, they're interested in finding out the defect efficiency ratio, or defect efficiency of the product. That is, how many faults are still available, how many faults are still to be found in the product, and that is something that they would like to ideally would like to have zero defects, but they need to make calculations based on the measures that they have collected on to estimate how many defects are still to be found in that software product. Similarly, they can ask questions how we meet our product or process goals, and that obviously is a direct measurement because the goals are established in the beginning of the project, and unless they collect measures to reflect the success against the goals, they'll not be able to come up with a satisfactory answer. And what will happen in future is an important question from the engineer's perspective vis-a-vis the product, and how are they going to make the changes that they need to make in order to improve the way software development is conducted. Measurement is important in three basic attributes, or three basic areas of activities. Number one, there are measures that help us to understand what is happening during development and maintenance. Now, that's the first thing. First you have to gain understanding of the current activities and best practices that you're using. So we assess the current situation, establishing baselines that help us to set goals for future. In this sense, the measurements take aspects of process and product and make it more visible to us. So once you collect measures and data that reflect the current status, it'll make your products and your processes more visible, and then you can chalk out a plan for future improvements. So first thing that immediately the benefits of instituting a measurement program is you get a much better understanding of your products and services as well as the processes. Second is the measurements allow us to control what is happening on our projects, because now we have firstly gained the understanding about the products as well as the processes, and now we can control these the things that we think are not aligned to our goals or are out of range with respect to acceptable values. Using our baselines, goals, and understanding of the relationships, we predict that what is likely to happen, and we make changes to processes and products that help us to meet our goals. For example, we monitor the complexity of code modules, and there is a very specific way of methodology of calculating complexity of code modules, and we decide that we are only going to review those modules which exceed the acceptable bounds with respect to the complexity. Third benefit that we achieve out of instituting a measurement program is that we can improve our processes and products. For instance, we may increase the number or type of design reviews that we do based on the measures of specification quality and predictions of design quality. तो ये three-pronged approach है, three-pronged benefits हैं जो कि हमें मिलते हैं in order to when we institute a measurements program. Number one, we are able to understand our products and processes better. Number two, we are able to control our products and services, products and processes better. And thirdly, we are able to improve our products and processes, because it is very important to understand that you can neither predict nor control what you cannot measure. So you have to start your measurement or institute a measurement program before you can actually start improving, or actually before you can start understanding and controlling your software projects. The scope of software metrics include many activities. There are a number of areas which are touched or which are affected by institution of a measurement program. These include cost and effort estimation. They include productivity models and measures. They include data collection, quality models and measures. Similarly, reliability models. Then you have performance evaluation models, structural and complexity metrics. Then there is concept of management by metrics, evaluation of methods and tools, and capability maturity assessment. So let's talk about each of these factors very briefly before we end this discussion on introductory discussion, I would say, on measurements. Cost and effort estimation. Managers provided the original motivation for deriving and using software measures because they wanted to know about the money that is being spent and the effort that is being put into developing these products. They wanted to be able to predict costs during early phases in software life cycles, and there are a number of models that are available to express costs and size, and this is an entire area in software engineering where size and cost estimation is becoming a specialty. The next is productivity models and measures. The pressing needs for management have also resulted in numerous attempts to define measures and models for assessing staff productivity during different software processes and in different environments. I'll show you a productivity model now. Productivity model consists of two main branches or main things. One is value and the other is cost. The value again is divided into quality and quantity, where cost is associated with the personnel, resources and complexity, and each of these have their own subdivisions within the productivity model, and so you need to collect measures for each of these sections of the productivity model. The next area affected or directly related to measurement program is data collection. The quality of any measurement program is clearly dependent on careful data collection and accurate data collection. Consistent and accurate data collection, however, is very difficult, and it must be planned and executed in a careful and sensitive manner, and you have to get your team, your project team, on board, and you have to teach them how to collect data regarding their project activities. The next is quality models and measures. Productivity cannot be viewed in isolation without an accompanying assessment of product quality. Just the speed of production is meaningless. Therefore, a number of models of quality whose measurements can be combined with those of productivity models have also been proposed and are being used. And I'm going to show you one software quality model now, which, as you can understand, consists of a number of metrics. There are a number of factors in this quality model, and with each factor there are criteria, and for each criteria you have to define metrics. So this quality models, software quality models, are the prime beneficiaries of measurement programs in different organizations. Then the next is reliability model. Most quality models include reliability as an important factor, but the need to predict and measure reliability itself has led to the development of more specialized reliability models. Reliability is one of the key areas within the quality model, and within itself it has value to be considered separately, because products have to be reliable, and you have to give a number now, because customers are very interested in very reliable products, and developing a reliability model provides a better understanding and control of software products. The next area is performance evaluation and models. Performance is another aspect of quality. Performance evaluation includes externally observable system performance characteristics such as response time and completion rates, and that is something that customers are also very interested in. And performance specialists investigate the internal workings of a system, including the efficiency of algorithms as embodied in algorithmic complexity. तो ये बहुत important है. बाज़ projects होते हैं जो कि they are very performance centric projects, और typically they are very complex algorithms involved in it, and so you have to develop performance models for such projects. Next is structural and complexity metrics. Desirable quality attributes like reliability and maintainability cannot be measured unless some operational version of the code is available, and we wish to be able to predict parts of software system that are likely to be more reliable, more difficult to test, and require more maintenance than other, even before the system is developed. And for that we have to develop structural and complexity attributes of the software which were available in advance or without the need of execution of software. So we have to develop special models in that, where we can predict and develop quality control and quality prediction mechanisms. And the next is measurement by metrics, and in the entire capability maturity model software, CMM software, and even in CMMI, there is a lot of emphasis on, especially on higher maturity levels, to perform all the management using metrics and measurements. The next is evaluation of methods and tools, and you do that only realistically by collecting measures at different levels of software development, and you select tools based on certain evaluations. Similarly, the last topic is capability maturity assessment, and this we have already talked about at different times. Capability assessment also requires collection of metrics and measurements of different sorts. So that brings to an end today's discussion about an introductory discussion about measurements, and we have seen that for long software engineering has neglected the application and usage of different measurements. However, that is changing now, and we as individuals use measurements in our everyday life, and now it is high time that we start using them, particularly in all aspects of software engineering as well. Thank you very much.